Greetings and salutations, loyal viewers of this channel. My name is Sean, and today we got to talk about Kamala Harris doing her first solo interview with ABC7 Philadelphia, a local news outlet in a state that she desperately needs to win, which of course is the state of Pennsylvania. And the reason that we got to talk about this is because she did not do well in this interview. In fact, it was absolutely horrible. She gave the same generic non-answers to the question that she gave during the debate, and this is proof positive of why they're hiding her. And the crazy thing is that this is a very winnable race for Kamala Harris, but the problem that she's facing, and I identified it during the debate, is the fact that a lot of undecided voters feel like they don't know enough information about her, and this interview does nothing to alleviate those concerns. So we're going to get into this. We're going to talk about how bad Kamala actually is, but before we do that, I want to thank everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay.
So a lot of lefties are raging at me currently right now on twitter.com because I highlighted that the most accurate pollster in 2020 and 2022 actually has Trump +3 in the popular vote against Kamala Harris, and a bunch of them have decided to say cope and all these other ridiculous things, even though, again, this is the most accurate pollster, and this is even acknowledged by Nate Silver. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again, and I'll repeat it time and time again. About 50% of undecided voters say they don't know enough information about Kamala. This is not something that the Kamala campaign denies. This is something that is not made up by me. It is well known. That's why the ABC News guy opens with that.
All good?
Okay.
Okay, wonderful. Good. Awesome. Madam Vice President, pleasure to meet you. Thanks for your time today. Our audience appreciates your time as well.
Of course.
As you know, we're sitting here in a state and arguably in front of an audience that 54 days from now could decide the outcome of this presidential election. Yeah. You hear it more than I do. People want to know more about you and about your specific plans.
So I want you guys to do what I do when I watch these interviews and think about those people who don't know Kamala Harris. Obviously, they know the evil orange man because he was president for 4 years. He was a celebrity for 30 years, and he's been in and around politics for nearly the last decade. And just think, if this interview gives you a good grasp on Kamala Harris, again, separate yourself from this. Think about your friends or family members that don't really pay attention to politics. Remember that Kamala didn't have a primary campaign because she stole the nomination from Joe Biden, and ask yourself if this is enough to actually inform you on who this person is. Is this enough to define her? Because that's the same question that I brought up during my coverage of the debate, and I had ended up concluding that no, that was not the case, and that's why we're not seeing a bump in the polls for Kamala post-debate. And even in a poll like the one that I cited from the most accurate pollster, where when asked, they said that they believe that Kamala won the debate, she's still trailing the evil orange man by 3 points, again, in the popular vote, which should be damn near impossible for her to lose. And again, that doesn't even talk about the implications that that would have for the Electoral College.
At the debate the other night, you talked about creating an opportunity economy. I wonder if we could drill down on that a little bit. When we talk about bringing down prices and making life more affordable for people, what are one or two specific things you have in mind for that?
Well, I'll start with this. I grew up a middle-class kid. My mother raised my sister and me. She worked very hard.
So I want to be 100% clear to everybody out there in the audience. I did not edit that response. I did not alter this footage in any way, shape, or form. In fact, this appears to be the long-form interview that was previously only available on ABC's website, and that's why you're hearing some of the bad audio in here. You hear some of that room noise, which, by the way, throughout the course of this video, I will likely remove that so you guys can actually hear the interview better, a better experience for you. But Kamala just answered, again, a question about the economy with, I grew up a middle-class kid. Let me tell you about my mother and all of that. And the crazy thing is about all of this is that this is not even true. Like, the point of this answer is for her to say, hey, I'm like you, or the other side isn't like you, or as she told Taranji, they ain't like us.
But these extremists,
As they say, they not like us.
No, they not.
The fact of the matter is, very few people out there in the audience grew up as Kamala did. Very few people out there in the audience were raised in Montreal, Canada, in an Indian household the way that she was. It's just not true. So her highlighting this doesn't answer the question, doesn't tell you more about her, and honestly makes her look like a clown.
I grew up a middle-class kid. My mother raised my sister and me. She worked very hard. She was able to finally save up enough money to buy our first house when I was a teenager. I grew up in a community of hardworking people, construction workers and nurses and teachers. And I try to explain to some people who may not have had the same experience, but a lot of people will relate to this. I grew up in a neighborhood of folks who were very proud of their lawn, and I was raised to believe and to know that all people deserve dignity, and that we as Americans have a beautiful character. We have ambitions and aspirations and dreams, but not everyone necessarily has access to the resources that can help them fuel those dreams and ambitions.
Look, do I even need to add commentary to this? Do I even need to explain how absurd this is? The question for Kamala Harris, the question for the Democratic Party, is how are you going to reduce prices? Inflation and the economy are a huge concern, and she just talked about how she grew up in a neighborhood where there's construction workers, nurses, professors like her mother, and small business owners, which she'll get into later. And you know what they all had in common? What brought them all together? Not the fact that they need to eat and grocery prices are up 20%, but the fact that they really, genuinely, and truly cared about their lawn. Now, I'm not saying that middle-class Americans don't care about their lawn, but the way that she's describing this sounds more like a landscaping issue rather than a concern that your average everyday American would have, something that they would maintain on their own versus something that people would be hired to maintain. And if you've seen the footage in and around the neighborhood that Kamala grew up, you will not be surprised to see that this clearly looks like the job of landscapers. But she grew up in a neighborhood of nurses, construction workers, and average everyday people like you normies out there in the audience, like you garbage people that I look down on. And I, Kamala Harris, will definitely provide opportunity economy for them because I grew up a middle-class kid. I grew up in the refuse just like you dirty, disgusting people that I never want to approach me in real life.
So when I talk about building an opportunity economy, it is very much with the mind of investing in the ambitions and aspirations and the incredible work ethic of the American people and creating opportunity for people, for example, to start a small business.
So we are about a minute and 30 seconds in to Kamala Harris's answer as to what the hell an opportunity economy is. And let us review. She said that she grew up in a middle-class household, that people that are construction workers and nurses and everyday normal people that Kamala Harris would spit on in her regular normal life if she wasn't running for office, care about their lawns. And then she said what she means by an opportunity economy is an economy that invests in the aspirations of Americans because those normal Americans have aspirations and thus gives them opportunity. Of course, using the name of the thing, the word in its own definition, which is ridiculous and absurd. And the crazy thing is, even though this answer is a minute and 30 seconds long already, it's still going. She's still rambling.
My mother, worked long hours, and our neighbor helped raise us. We used to call her, I still call her, our second mother. She was a small business owner. I love our small business owners. I learned who they are from my childhood, and she was a community leader. She hired locally. She mentored. Our small businesses are so much a part of the fabric of our communities, not to mention, really, I think, the backbone of America's economy.
Yeah, that's right. 2 full minutes in, and we have the entirety of her opening answer at the debate, which means that Kamala Harris has about 6 lines that were given to her by her campaign team that she's allowed to say. And by the way, the idea that, her mother's second mother, whatever, she was actually a small business owner, and we call her second mom, even though she has no name at all whatsoever, nothing personal to actually attach to the story to make it real or tangible, and therefore small business owners are the backbone backbone of America. Again, the most generic line in politics. This or that group is the backbone of America. And again, do you feel like you have gotten to know Kamala Harris? Do you feel like you have any idea what the hell her plan is? Because we're now 2 full minutes in and she hasn't given us any information.
So my opportunity economy plan includes giving startups a $50,000 tax deduction to start their small business. It used to be $5,000. Nobody can start a small business with $5,000. But investing in people's innovative ideas and giving them the ability to go for it.
So finally, over 2 minutes in, we get the first policy proposal, which is I'm going to give you a $50,000 tax credit if you're starting a small business and or a startup. It used to be $5,000, but that is nowhere near enough to start your small business. And this is where I would point out that you're not supposed to use the tax credit to help a small business. The tax credit is supposed to theoretically incentivize that. But whatever, she doesn't understand anything about that. That's totally fine. But this is the first policy that she brought up. The problem is people don't have money to start a small business. Interest rates are high. Borrowing is very expensive at this moment in time as compared to previous years, not really compared to historic years where we've had way higher interest rates. And that is creating an issue for people.
Opportunity economy means, look, we don't have enough housing in America. We have a housing supply shortage. And what that means, in particular for so many younger Americans, the American dream is elusive. It's just actually not attainable. So part of my plan is to work with the private sector and housing developers to give them a tax credit, to be able to partner with us as the government to build, and my goal is 3 million new homes by the end of my first term. In addition, to help people who just want to get their foot in the door, literally. And so giving first-time home buyers a $25,000 down payment assistance to be able to just get in the door, and then they will do the work that they need to do to save and to pay that mortgage and to build wealth for themselves and their family.
So it needs to be pointed out that Kamala Harris is in fact a California politician, and nowhere is it worse in this country for builders than the state of California. And one of the reasons why it's absolutely terrible for builders is because of all these different government policies, government regulations, and government housing building schemes. So what ends up happening in these cases, and we've seen this time and time again, is that they'll promise to build these units in conjunction with the private sector, and then you'll see a news story a few years later that will let you know that they're spending nearly $800,000 per one-bedroom apartment during the course of this project. The fact of the matter is, you do not need in any way, shape, or form to have the government partner with the home builders in order to build homes. This is a scheme to funnel your tax dollars to a special interest group. What you need is to remove rules and regulations like zoning laws, like open space requirements, like all these other things that are holding up the housing market. We talked about on this channel before that in Tennessee, which doesn't have very many regulations, the home building permits actually align with the price of housing. That is a normal economy functioning as you would expect. By contrast, in California, Kamala Harris's home state, as prices are going up dramatically, home building permits have no connection with that, and many a time they actually go down as prices are going up, and this is due to rules and regulations. On top of that, if you give people $25,000 in down payment assistance, that will raise the price of housing, not lower it, because you're stimulating demand when you have a supply issue. To me, it's really unfortunate that out of all the policy positions that Kamala Harris can put there out on the table, the one that she actually says, the only thing that she really repeats over and over again, is one of the most destructive policies for the American people who just want to be able to afford a home. It quite literally will do the exact opposite. Everyone understands this. It's been tried time and time again. It's been tried in her home state time and time again, and it always 100% backfires.
These are some examples of what I mean when I talk about an opportunity economy, and a lot of it has to do with just the community I was raised in and the people that I admired, who work hard, and deserve to have, their dreams fulfilled because they're prepared to work for it.
Again, this is what Kamala Harris is trying to pitch to you. She's trying to explain to everybody out there in the audience that she's just like you, and her opportunity economy-based policies, which are just a copy-paste from terrible housing policy in the state of California, according to her own answer, are based on the fact that she grew up and she understands, and it's just about her lived experience, bro. And you just gotta understand that she brings that to the table, because I'm the middle class kid. I don't know if you know that. My second mom owned a small business. We still call her second mom to this day. She finds it to be really weird. She was our neighbor and she didn't like watching us all the time. Also, how the hell did she have so much time to watch us when she was running a small business? But you know what? That is neither here nor there.
You talked at the debate and at previous appearances about turning the page on the past. And in fact, here today in Johnstown, you're talking about a new way forward. Yeah. I think some people have a question, given maybe your current role as Vice President of the United States, how different you are from Joe Biden. And so I wonder if there are one or two spots, policy areas or approaches where you would say, I'm a different person.
So right there, this guy asked her another very straightforward question, which is, how are you different from Joe Biden? And remember, this guy is not trying to hurt Kamala Harris. He got this interview as a local ABC affiliate. This is a big deal for him. So he's actually trying to help her by addressing the concerns that voters have in Pennsylvania, a state that she desperately needs to win, but she's just fumbling it. Again, you need to define yourself. You need to identify with voters exactly who you are, and part of that is showing the differences between you and Joe Biden, the person that you are the vice president of, because Joe Biden, according to you, was so unpopular that you had to stage a coup to get rid of him.
Well, I'm obviously not Joe Biden. And, I offer a new generation of leadership. And so, for example, thinking about developing and creating an opportunity economy where it's about investing in areas that really need a lot of work. And maybe focusing on, again, the aspirations and the dreams, but also just recognizing that at this moment in time, some of the stuff we could take for granted years ago, we can't take for granted anymore. For example, another plan that I have that is a new approach is to expand the child tax credit to $6,000 for young families for the first year of their child's life, because that is obviously a very critical stage of development of a child. And a lot of young parents need the help to buy a car seat or a crib or clothes for their kids. And so my approach is about new ideas, new policies that are directed at the current moment. And also, to be very honest with you, my focus is very much in what we need to do over the next 10, 20 years to catch up to the 21st century around, again, capacity, but also challenges.
What the hell did she just say? She just said the thing about the child tax credit, which is how different and distinguished she is from Joe Biden. I will point out that this is quite literally the Joe Biden policy, except it's $6,000 instead of $3,000 or $3,500. And by the way, it's only for the first year of the child's life, which Biden's child tax credit went all the way up to age 18. So not really that much better in terms of policy than that. And she's like, oh, car seats and all that. But then she said this.
My approach is about new ideas, new policies that are directed at the current moment. And also, to be very honest with you, my focus is very much in what we need to do over the next 10, 20 years to catch up to the 21st century around, again, capacity, but also challenges.
My focus is what we need to do in the next 10 to 20 years to catch up to the 21st century, again, in terms of capacity and challenges. But what are we even talking about? Now, look, I'm not one of these people who says that the evil orange man is the most articulate person on planet Earth. Everyone knows that he isn't. But what the hell does that mean? Remember, she's supposed to be not demented like Joe Biden. She's supposed to be the new generation and not a crazy person like Trump. But she just said we need to invest in the 21st century to get to challenges about capacity and other challenges and catch up to the 21st century.
Crime and public safety are two major issues right at the forefront of voters' minds. In Philadelphia as well, where crime is a significant issue. When we talk about crime, the conversation turns to gun safety as well. And I think you actually probably caught a lot of people off guard, maybe a bit by surprise in the debate the other night when you mentioned that you are a gun owner. I know you said it in 2019 as well. Mm-hmm. I want to talk about your values on this issue. When it comes to gun ownership, where do you draw the line in America on gun ownership and gun use?
So this guy right here gives a little bit of a nod, and you could tell he's unsatisfied with this answer because Kamala Harris is an unmitigated disaster. So he's going to try to pivot to crime, which, by the way, ABC's debate moderators ended up helping Kamala Harris, despite the fact that only a day later, the National Crime Victimization Survey data came out from the Department of Justice, and that ended up supporting Trump's claims about crime, not Kamala and the Biden administration's claims about crime. And let's see where this question goes.
Well, like you said, Brian, I am a gun owner, and Tim Walz, my running mate, is also a gun owner. We're not taking anybody's guns away. I support the Second Amendment, and I support reasonable gun safety laws.
So, of course, he ends up pivoting from crime, from the numbers, from an interesting conversation to gun safety, gun control. And Kamala Harris says, you know what? I'm a gun owner. Tim Walz is a gun owner. We love our guns, and we're not going to do anything that's going to violate the Second Amendment before, of course, proposing something that will directly violate the Second Amendment.
Part of my approach to this is I was a career prosecutor for most of my career. I have personally prosecuted homicide cases. I have personally looked at autopsies. I have personally seen what assault weapons do to the human body. And so I feel very strongly that it is consistent with the Second Amendment and your right to own a gun to also say we need an assault weapons ban. They're literally tools of war. They were literally designed to kill a lot of human beings quickly.
So yeah, just to be clear, Kamala Harris is in favor of gun bans. She's still in favor of gun bans as she was back in the day. And her saying assault weapons, these are the most dangerous because these are meant to kill people. They're just modern sporting rifles. And again, rifles total do not account for more than like 2% of all the gun homicides in this country. Most gun homicides are committed with pistols. In Philadelphia, most gun homicides are committed in the hood with pistols. Now, there's an issue with Glocks being modified with switches to fire fully automatic. She could have addressed that. She could have talked about a crackdown against that. But instead, she talks about the AR-47, AK-15. We need to get after this because I'm so knowledgeable about the guns, and we need to talk about the guns. And, you know, these guns are designed to kill people, and killing people bad, weapons of war bad, and I don't like that.
2 final questions, if I might.
Sure.
On the appeal of the man you were running against, as you drove here today, you likely saw a lot of Trump signs. Mm-hmm. He has an historic appeal in this country. And as you are someone running against him, and trying to understand that, I wonder how you distill it. What do you understand his appeal to be? And how do you speak to his voters? Or maybe people who just share his values but are open to something else?
I, based on experience and a lived experience, no. In my heart, I know. In my soul, I know that the vast majority of us as Americans have so much more in common than what separates us. And I also believe that I am accurate in knowing that most Americans want a leader who brings us together as Americans and not someone who professes to be a leader who is trying to have us point our fingers at each other.
So he ends up asking Kamala about Trump and all the different people that support him. And of course, she is not going to fall flat on her face and make the same mistake that Hillary Clinton made, where you insult the voters and then people think that they are all in that group, which of course was the basket of deplorables. That being said, this answer doesn't have a lot of teeth to it. It's not that interesting. And that's really all we have for this 11-minute interview. Kamala's first interview on her own without Tim Walz since stealing the nomination from President Joseph R. Biden. And the fact of the matter is, this is not good enough. The fact of the matter is, there's a reason why her halo is fading away from her rapidly. She's crashing back down to earth. And that is because you cannot turn the most unpopular vice president in American history into Barack Obama overnight. Even with the full court press from the media, it's just not possible. And everybody's starting to see what's going on with Harris. And Trump has a world of problems. We've talked about this on this channel repeatedly, but the fact of the matter is, everyone knows who Trump is. Everyone has their mind made up about him. And if that was true, that anybody was undecided about who Orange Man is, he would go out there, make statements, and you would understand that real quick in case you forgot. Kamala Harris is afraid to talk to voters. There's all these different reports about how she's anxious or whatever, but the fact is, while people might be able to relate to anxiety, they're not running for president. And if you're too anxious to talk to people in a news interview, if you can't handle yourself, then you should not be the candidate, period, point blank. And by the way, if they would have ran a real primary, she never would have been. But those are just my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you liked the video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on the social media, support and view the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about Kamala Harris's first interview. Till next time.